My life savings vanished overnight because of a cruel scam. At 62, I showed up at my daughter's doorstep for help, but she closed the door in my face, saying her husband didn't feel comfortable with me there. Broken and desperate, I called a woman I hadn't spoken to in 38 years, my former sister-in-law who once promised we'd always be family. When she opened the door to her elegant home, she said just 4 words: "I knew you'd come." My entire world changed in that moment. But before we continue, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and write in the comments where you're watching this video from. We love to know how far our stories travel. My name is Eleanor, and at 62 years old, I thought I had learned all the harsh lessons life had to offer. I was wrong. It all began on a Tuesday morning that started like any other in my small apartment in Portland, Oregon. I was checking my bank account online to pay the electric bill when I noticed something strange. My balance showed $247. It should have been $87,000. My heart stopped. I refreshed the page 3 times, thinking it was a technical error. But the number didn't change. $247. Everything I had saved over 35 years of working as a school librarian, gone.
I called the bank immediately, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. After being transferred 4 times, a calm voice finally explained what had happened. Someone had gained access to my account through a phishing email I'd clicked on 3 days earlier. It looked exactly like a message from my bank asking me to verify my information. The money had been transferred to offshore accounts in multiple countries. The chances of recovering it? Almost 0. I felt the room spinning around me. That money was supposed to take care of me through retirement. It was my safety net, my security, my entire future. And it was gone because of one careless click. The bank representative said they'd open an investigation, but his tone made it clear he'd seen this happen 1,000 times before. Victims rarely got their money back. I was just another statistic, another foolish old woman who fell for a scam. For 2 days, I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I just sat in my apartment staring at the walls, trying to understand how my entire life could be erased by a single mistake. My rent was due in 3 weeks, and I had $247 to my name. That's when I knew I had to call Jessica, my daughter. Jessica lives in a beautiful suburb of Portland called Lake Oswego, where the houses are enormous and the lawns look like golf courses. She moved there 6 years ago when her husband, Trevor, was promoted to senior partner at his law firm. We'd never been particularly close. She was always more her father's daughter than mine. But she was all the family I had left. I used my cell phone, which thankfully I'd paid for the month before. "Mom, what's wrong? You sound upset." "Jessica, something terrible has happened. I've been scammed. All my savings are gone." Silence. A long, uncomfortable silence. "Gone? What do you mean gone?" "I mean someone stole everything from my bank account. I have almost nothing left, sweetheart. I can't even pay next month's rent." Another pause. I could hear her breathing, calculating. That's really bad, Mom. Have you called the police?" "The bank is handling it, but they said the money is probably gone for good." "Jessica, I need help. Just temporarily, just until I can figure out what to do. Can I stay with you for a little while?" The silence this time was even longer. "Mom, I don't know. Trevor and we have a very specific routine here. The house is set up the way we like it. I wouldn't be in your way, darling. I'd help with cooking, cleaning, whatever you need." "It's not about that." Her voice had that careful quality, like she was choosing each word precisely. "Trevor is very private. He works from home a lot, and he's stressed with a big case right now. Having someone else in the house would make him uncomfortable." My chest tightened. "Jessica, I'm your mother." "I know that, Mom. But this is Trevor's house too. I have to think about his needs." "And what about my needs? I have nowhere to go." "There must be social services for situations like this. Programs for seniors. Maybe you could look into subsidized housing." Subsidized housing. She was suggesting I go live in a shelter while she lived in her 5-bedroom house with a guest wing. "Please," I whispered, and I hated how broken I sounded. "Just for a few weeks." "I'll talk to Trevor," she finally said. "Let me see what I can do." She called back 3 hours later. "Mom, Trevor feels really strongly about this. He says our home is our sanctuary, and he needs it to be a stress-free zone. He suggested maybe you could stay at that extended stay hotel near the mall. He even said he could lend you some money for the first week. Lend. Not give. Lend. Your husband won't let your mother stay in your house? It's not about letting me, Mom. It's about respect for both our feelings. And honestly, I think you'd be more comfortable somewhere with your own space. You've always valued your independence. That was a lie. She was rewriting history to make herself feel better about abandoning me. I understand, I said quietly. I'll Venmo you $500 for the hotel. Keep me updated, okay? She hung up before I could respond. I sat in my apartment for another full day, staring at the $500 Jessica had sent. $500. That would cover maybe a week at a cheap hotel, 2 weeks if I barely ate. I looked around my small apartment, the place I'd called home for 15 years. The walls were covered with photos of Jessica growing up, family vacations, holidays. Pictures of my late husband, Marcus, smiling in every one. He'd been gone for 12 years now, and I'd learned to be alone. But being alone and being abandoned are two very different things. That's when I remembered the box. It was in the back of my closet, a shoebox I'd kept for nearly 4 decades. Inside were letters, old photographs, and a single business card I'd held onto for reasons I couldn't fully explain. The card belonged to Catherine Winters. She had been my sister-in-law during my first marriage, before Marcus, before Jessica, in what felt like another lifetime entirely. I was married once before Marcus, to a man named David Winters. We were both 22, too young and too foolish to know what marriage actually required. It lasted only 4 years before we realized we wanted completely different lives. The divorce was amicable, almost friendly. We simply weren't meant to be. But during those 4 years, I became incredibly close to David's older sister, Catherine. She was 28 when I met her, sophisticated and warm, working as an art curator in Seattle. She treated me like the sister she never had. We'd spend hours talking about books, dreams, and life. When David and I divorced, Catherine pulled me aside at the final paperwork signing. "This changes nothing between us," she said firmly, pressing her business card into my hand. "You're my sister, divorce or no divorce. If you ever need anything, and I mean anything, you call me. Promise me." I promised, but I never called. After the divorce, I moved to Portland, started fresh, met Marcus, had Jessica, built a whole new life. Catherine and I exchanged Christmas cards for a few years, but eventually even that faded. I heard through mutual friends that she'd never married, that she'd become incredibly successful in the art world, that she'd moved into some beautiful estate outside Seattle. The last card she sent me was 23 years ago. Inside, she'd written, "The door is always open, Eleanor." Always. Now, sitting in my apartment with nowhere to go, I pulled out that old business card. The number was probably disconnected. Catherine was probably long gone, moved on with her life. Why would she remember a sister-in-law from a 4-year marriage that ended 38 years ago? But I had no other options. With trembling fingers, I dialed the number on the card, expecting it to ring endlessly or tell me the number was no longer in service. Instead, after 2 rings, a voice answered. Winters' residence. It wasn't Catherine. It was a younger woman, probably a housekeeper or assistant. I'm looking for Catherine Winters. This is Eleanor. Eleanor Hayes. Well, I used to be Eleanor Winters, but that was a very long time ago. I'm sorry to bother. One moment, please. The line went quiet, and I almost hung up. This was absurd. What was I doing? Then I heard her voice. Eleanor? It had been 38 years, but I recognized it immediately. That same warm, cultured tone that used to make me feel safe. Catherine, I'm so sorry to call like this. I know it's been forever, and you probably don't even remember. Remember? Eleanor, I've thought about you more times than I can count. Where are you? Are you all right? The concern in her voice broke something inside me. I started crying, right there on the phone with a woman I hadn't spoken to in almost 4 decades. I'm not all right. I've been scammed. All my money is gone. My daughter won't take me in. I have nowhere to go, and I didn't know who else to call. Where are you right now? Portland. In my apartment, but I can't afford next month's rent. Stay exactly where you are. I'm coming to get you. Catherine, you don't have to. Eleanor. Her voice was firm, brooking no argument. You are my sister. Blood or paper doesn't change that. I told you 38 years ago that my door was always open. I meant it then, and I mean it now. I'll be there in 3 hours. After we hung up, I sat in stunned silence. She was really coming. This woman I hadn't seen in 38 years was dropping everything to rescue me. I spent those 3 hours packing what little I owned into 2 suitcases. My landlord had already said he'd give me until the end of the month, but I knew I wouldn't be coming back here. That chapter of my life was over. At exactly 2:47 p.m., there was a knock at my door. I opened it, and there she stood. Catherine Winters was 67 now, her dark hair silver white and cut in an elegant bob. She wore tailored slacks and a cashmere sweater, tasteful jewelry, and carried herself with the same grace I remembered. But her eyes, those warm hazel eyes, were exactly the same. We stared at each other for a long moment. Then she smiled, and it was like the years melted away. "Hello, little sister." I fell into her arms and wept. Catherine's car was a sleek black Audi, comfortable and quiet. She loaded my 2 suitcases into the trunk as if they contained treasures, not the sad remains of a broken life. "Tell me everything," she said as we pulled onto the highway toward Seattle. So I did. I told her about Marcus, about our good marriage and his death 12 years ago, about Jessica and how we'd never quite connected the way mothers and daughters should, about my job at the school library, my quiet retirement, the phishing email, the bank account, Jessica's rejection. Catherine listened without interrupting, her hands steady on the wheel, her expression growing more and more pained. "That girl should be ashamed of herself," she finally said. "She has her own life. Her husband is a coward, and she's a disappointment." Catherine's voice was sharp. "You are her mother. You raised her. And she turned you away over a man's comfort? Unacceptable." It felt good to hear someone validate my pain, to not make excuses for Jessica's behavior. "What about you?" I asked, wanting to change the subject. "Tell me about your life. I heard you became very successful." Catherine smiled slightly. "I suppose I did. After you and David divorced, I threw myself into my work. Opened my own gallery, represented several major artists, made some very smart investments. Eventually I sold the gallery for more money than I ever dreamed possible." She paused. "I never married. Came close once, but he wanted me to give up my career. I chose my work instead. Any regrets?" "Only one." She glanced at me. "I regret not staying in touch with you. After you married Marcus, I thought you'd moved on, built a new family. I didn't want to intrude. I thought the same thing. I didn't want to be a reminder of David's failed marriage." "His failed marriage?" Catherine laughed. "Eleanor, that boy failed you, not the other way around. He was immature and self-centered. You deserved so much better." We drove through increasingly beautiful neighborhoods until we reached an area of Seattle I'd only seen in magazines. Estates with gates, properties that stretched for acres, the kind of wealth that whispers instead of shouts. Catherine turned into a long driveway marked by stone pillars. The driveway wound through gardens that looked professionally maintained, past a fountain, until it opened up to reveal a house that made me gasp. It was a modern masterpiece of glass and stone, 3 stories with floor-to-ceiling windows that reflected the late afternoon sun. Clean lines, elegant architecture, surrounded by mature trees and meticulously designed landscaping. "Catherine," I breathed. This is incredible." She parked in front of the house and turned to look at me. "It's been too big and too quiet for too long. I built it hoping to fill it with people I loved. Instead, I've rattled around in it alone for 15 years. She reached over and squeezed my hand. "You're doing me a favor by being here." Inside was even more stunning. Soaring ceilings, art everywhere, original pieces by artists whose names I recognized from museums. Furniture that was both beautiful and comfortable. Light streaming through those enormous windows. It felt like walking into a dream. "The guest suite is on the 2nd floor," Catherine said, leading me up a floating staircase. "But honestly, Eleanor, I want you to think of this as your home, not a guest situation." She opened a door to reveal a spacious bedroom with its own sitting area, a massive bathroom with heated floors, and a private balcony overlooking the gardens. "This is too much," I whispered. Catherine turned to face me, her expression serious. "Listen to me. When you married my brother, you became my family. When you divorced him, you stayed my family. That's not a feeling that goes away, Eleanor. I meant what I said all those years ago. You are my sister, and sisters take care of each other." The first few weeks were awkward. I felt like an intruder in Catherine's perfect home, afraid to touch anything or leave any trace of myself. But Catherine was patient, gently insisting I help her cook, asking my opinion on which art pieces to rotate in the gallery wall. inviting me to join her morning walks through the gardens. Slowly, I began to relax. Catherine worked from a home office, managing her investments and consulting for several galleries. But she always made time for meals together, for evening conversations over wine, for simply being present. "Why did you never marry?" I asked one night as we sat in her library, a fire crackling in the fireplace. She considered the question thoughtfully. "I think I was waiting for someone who saw me as a whole person, not just as an accessory to their life. I dated successful men who wanted a beautiful wife to showcase. I dated creative types who wanted a patron, not a partner. I never found someone who wanted me for me." She paused. "Maybe I was too picky. Or maybe I just never got over losing you." "Losing me? You were the first person who loved me without wanting something in return. No agenda, no expectations. Just genuine affection. When you left, I realized how rare that was." Her words settled around my heart like a warm embrace. 6 weeks after I moved in, Jessica called. "Mom, I've been trying to reach you. Your apartment number doesn't work anymore." "I moved," I said simply. "Moved where?" "Into subsidized housing." The condescension in her voice made my jaw tight. "No, I'm staying with family." "What family?" "You don't have any family except me. I'm staying with Catherine Winters. She was my sister-in-law from my first marriage." A long pause. "Your first marriage?" "Mom, that was like 100 years ago. Why would she take you in?" "Because she cares about me. Because she considers me family." "Well, that's great, I guess. Where does she live?" I gave her Catherine's address, and I could practically hear Jessica Googling it on her phone. "Mom, this is in the Highlands. Do you know what houses cost there?" "I'm aware. Is she wealthy?" "Yes, Jessica. Very." Another pause, and I could hear the wheels turning in her daughter's head. "Trevor and I have been talking. We feel terrible about how things went down. We'd really like you to come for dinner. Get to know Trevor better. Maybe we could all work on rebuilding our relationship." The invitation that would have meant everything to me 2 months ago now felt hollow and calculated. "I'll have to check with Catherine. We have plans most evenings." "Plans? What kind of plans?" "Catherine and I are taking a watercolor class together. We're planning a trip to Vancouver next month. We're very busy." The silence on the other end was almost comical. "Mom, you sound different." "I'm happy, Jessica. For the first time in a very long time, I'm genuinely happy." After I hung up, Catherine appeared in the doorway, 2 glasses of wine in her hands. "Your daughter? She wants to have dinner. Now that she knows where I'm living." Catherine handed me a glass, her expression knowing. People have a funny way of showing interest once they realize you have value again. I feel like I should give her another chance. "She's my daughter. And you're her mother. A relationship works both ways, Eleanor. Don't let guilt make you accept crumbs when you deserve the whole meal." Against my better judgment, I agreed to dinner at Jessica's house. Catherine offered to come with me for moral support, but I told her this was something I needed to do alone. "Call me if you need an escape route," she said, only half joking. "I'll come get you, no questions asked." Jessica's house looked exactly as I remembered. Perfectly landscaped, perfectly decorated, perfectly cold. Trevor answered the door wearing khakis and a polo shirt, his smile polished and professional. "Eleanor, so good to see you," he said, shaking my hand like I was a business associate. "Jessica's told me so much about you." I doubted that very much. Jessica appeared behind him, wearing a dress that probably cost more than I used to spend on groceries for a month. She hugged me stiffly, her perfume overwhelming. "Mom, you look good. Really good, actually." It was true. Living with Catherine had changed me. The constant stress had lifted from my shoulders. I was sleeping better, eating better. Catherine had taken me shopping and helped me pick out clothes that actually fit properly and made me feel attractive. I'd even started styling my hair differently. "Thank you, darling. You look lovely too." Dinner was elaborate, some kind of seared salmon with microgreens and a sauce I couldn't pronounce. Trevor talked endlessly about his important cases, his important clients, his important opinions on everything from politics to wine selections. Jessica smiled and nodded, playing the role of the supportive wife, asking him questions designed to let him talk more. I sat there, eating silently, watching this performance and wondering when we would get to the real reason I'd been invited. Finally, over dessert, Trevor leaned back in his chair and said, "So, Eleanor, Jessica tells me you're staying with a friend in the Highlands." "My sister-in-law, Catherine." "Yes. Must be quite a place. Those properties go for 5-6 million easily." What does she do? She's retired. She owned an art gallery, made some successful investments. Single? Trevor asked, and I could see the calculation in his eyes. Yes. No children. No. Jessica jumped in, her voice artificially bright. Mom, we were thinking, since you're getting back on your feet, maybe you'd like to start joining us for family dinners. Once a week or something. We really want to be more present in your life. I set down my fork carefully. Jessica, where was this concern 2 months ago when I had nowhere to sleep? Her face flushed. Mom, I explained that. Trevor was stressed and I was homeless. Your mother was homeless. And you sent me $500 and told me to find a hotel. That's not fair, Trevor interjected. We offered to help financially. You offered to lend me money. There's a difference. The tension at the table was thick enough to cut with a knife. Jessica's eyes were shining with angry tears. I don't understand why you're being like this. We're trying to make things right. Are you? I asked quietly. Or did you just realize that your mother is living with a wealthy woman who might leave her something someday, and you want to make sure you stay in the picture? Jessica's face went pale, then red. How dare you? You're my mother. Of course I care about you. You care about me now. You didn't care about me when I was worth nothing. Trevor stood up, his face tight. I think maybe this dinner was a mistake. Eleanor, I think you should leave. I stood, gathering my purse. I think you're right. Jessica followed me to the door, her voice pleading. Mom, please. I know I made mistakes, but I'm trying. Don't shut me out. I turned to look at my daughter, this woman I'd raised, who had chosen comfort over compassion, wealth over warmth. Jessica, I'm not shutting you out. But I'm also not going to pretend that what you did didn't hurt. I'm not going to let guilt make me accept scraps of affection when you think there might be something in it for you. So that's it. You're choosing a woman you barely know over your own daughter. I'm choosing someone who chose me. There's a difference. I walked out into the cool evening air and called Catherine. Come get me, I said. Please. She was there in 15 minutes. Life with Catherine settled into a beautiful rhythm. We became not just roommates, but true sisters. She taught me about art, taking me to galleries and museums, explaining the stories behind the paintings. I taught her to cook my grandmother's recipes, filling her enormous kitchen with the smells of home-cooked meals. We traveled together, Vancouver, San Francisco, a week in Paris that felt like something out of a dream. Catherine insisted on paying for everything, but she did it in a way that never made me feel like charity. You're giving me something I could never buy, she told me. You're giving me family. My 63rd birthday was the happiest I'd had in years. Catherine threw a small party, inviting a few of her closest friends, artists, gallery owners, fascinating people with incredible stories. They welcomed me warmly, treating me not as Catherine's charity case, but as her beloved sister. You've transformed her, one of her friends told me. I've known Catherine for 20 years, and I've never seen her this happy. She was always elegant, always successful, but there was a loneliness about her. That's gone now. It was true. Catherine glowed these days. And so did I. Jessica called periodically, always with the same agenda. Trying to rebuild bridges she'd burned, asking pointed questions about Catherine's health, her estate planning, her intentions. Mom, I just want to make sure no one's taking advantage of you, she said during one particularly transparent call. The only person who took advantage of me was you, Jessica. You turned me away when I needed you most. I was trying to respect my marriage. And I'm trying to respect myself. Maybe for the first time in my life. 8 months after I moved in, Catherine sat me down in her office, her expression serious. Eleanor, I need to talk to you about something. My heart sank. Was she going to ask me to leave? Had I overstayed my welcome? I've been updating my estate planning, she said. And I want you to know that I'm leaving everything to you. I stared at her, unable to process what she was saying. Catherine, you can't. I can and I am. You are my family. You are my sister. And everything I've built, I want it to go to someone who will appreciate it, someone who will use it to make the world a little bit kinder. She reached across the desk and took my hand. You gave up your life to take care of a husband, to raise a daughter who doesn't appreciate you. You worked hard your whole life and got scammed out of everything you earned. I want you to finally have security. I want you to finally have peace. Tears streamed down my face. I don't know what to say. Say you'll accept it. Say you'll stop feeling like a burden and start feeling like the blessing you are. 1 year after I moved in with Catherine, she was diagnosed with stage 4. Pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave her 6 months. She lasted 8 months, and they were the most beautiful, painful, precious months of my life. I took care of her the way I'd always wanted to take care of someone, with patience, tenderness, and unconditional love. We talked about everything. We laughed about old memories. We cried about the time we'd wasted apart. We made peace with the past and celebrated the present. Jessica came to visit twice. Both times, she spent more time looking around the house than sitting with Catherine. Both times, she left early, uncomfortable with the reality of illness and death. Catherine died on a Tuesday morning in early spring, holding my hand, surrounded by the art she loved, in the home she'd built. "Thank you," she whispered, "for coming home." At her funeral, the church was packed with artists, gallery owners, friends, and admirers. I sat in the front row, grief-stricken but grateful. Grateful that I'd made that phone call. Grateful that she'd answered. Grateful for every single day we'd had together. Jessica attended, dressed in black, sitting in the back with Trevor. She approached me at the reception afterward. "Mom, I'm so sorry for your loss." "Our loss," I corrected. "She was family." "Right. Well, I guess we'll need to talk about arrangements, the estate and everything." "Of course." That was what she cared about. "Catherine's lawyer will be in touch," I said simply. When the will was read the following week, Jessica's face went through a remarkable transformation, from expectant to confused to outraged. Catherine had left her entire estate to me. The house, the investments, the art collection. Everything. Estimated value, over $12 million. "This is insane," Jessica shouted. "She barely knew you. You were related by a marriage that ended 38 years ago." "She knew me better than you ever did," I said quietly. Jessica and Trevor threatened to contest the will. They hired lawyers, made accusations of undue influence, of manipulation. But Catherine's legal team was better, and her will was airtight. More importantly, she'd left detailed letters explaining exactly why she'd made her choices. "Eleanor came to me with nothing and asked for nothing except a place to belong," she'd written. "She gave me more in 1 year than most people give in a lifetime. She is my sister, my family, my choice. This is not about blood or obligation. This is about love." The legal battle lasted 6 months before Jessica and Trevor finally gave up. I'm 64 now, and I live in Catherine's house, my house, surrounded by beauty and memories. I've started volunteering at the public library, teaching seniors about internet safety, so they don't fall victim to the same scams I did. I've turned one of the guest rooms into an art studio where I paint terrible watercolors that make me happy. Jessica and I speak occasionally. The relationship is polite, distant, exactly what happens when love becomes transactional. Sometimes I feel sad about that, but mostly I feel free. Because here's what I learned. Family isn't always the people you're born to. Sometimes family is the person who answers the phone after 38 years. Sometimes family is someone who sees your worth when everyone else sees your burden. The scam that destroyed my life savings turned out to be the greatest gift I could have received. It stripped away my illusions. It showed me who really cared. It brought me home to a sister I thought I'd lost and gave me a year of love that was worth more than all the money in the world. Catherine left me her wealth, but that wasn't the real inheritance. She left me something far more valuable. She taught me that I was worthy of love, worthy of respect, worthy of taking up space in the world. And that is a lesson worth everything. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.